Where we'll be able to see the attendees.
So on the panels at the bottom, you can see participants, and then
Yes.
it'll open up a panel on the right-hand side, and then you can see attendees, and we have 12 already. We've got eager
Brilliant.
beavers.
Brilliant.
16, and the numbers go up. You guys are famous.
Hello, I see some familiar names there. Good to see everyone tonight or this evening. I don't know, is it night, evening? It's one of those.
Kathleen, I appreciate you taking the initiatives. I think so for all our attendees, as you guys come on, just write in the chat, say hello, where are you from?
Yes,
it's going to be interesting. Which territory are you in?
And also you must vote on who your favorite panelist is.
Ooh.
And it's okay to choose me.
It's okay. Oh, wow.
We can all say we least excited about Chris. I think we can all agree on that.
Oh, shame. Picking on
so
Chris.
mean, Alex.
Some people want to wait till the end, till the votes. We're going to have to give me a reminder.
Who gives the most valuable insights?
A lot from Cape Town,
We've got
right?
someone from Paris.
Yeah, it's
Bonjour, bonjour.
Amazing.
Or bonsoir.
And Milano, international here. As you can see, I was asked if I'm in Atlanta, in what's it? Alaska. I'm just in Cape Town, and you can
Alaska's
tell
in your
that
heart.
Alex is not in Cape Town.
I'm actually in Alaska also. I don't know. I don't get cold, I guess.
So you would still be wearing the same thing if you're in Cape Town today.
Yeah, pretty much. We're quite an international board, aren't we? I mean, are you guys both in Cape Town? And it's just Chris and I in London. Okay.
No, I'm in Joburg. It's just as cold in Joburg at the moment, so it's fine.
Well, to Cape Townians, Joburg is a new territory, so it's like a different.
100%.
Anything past Worcester, it's another country.
That is true. Shame. That is true. So if both of you, Chris and Alex, in London, you must be very cold where you are, or Alex, you must be running around quite a lot. Because I mean, Chris has got a jersey on and everything, and then
I think it's so hot here that they just decided to crank up all the air cons like ridiculously high.
Yeah.
So London is not made to be hot. It's like muggy and not particularly nice. But at the same time, the cold in Cape Town is just not for me. So.
But it's not even that bad. It's really not that bad. I think I've just gotten so acclimatized to it. But I grew up in Joburg, Peter, and those mornings are like next level, like bone-chillingly cold.
Once you go inland, I was at boarding school in Grahamstown, and once you just like off, I think the short obviously definitely regulates temperature. So once you're inland, it just really starts to get to you. But I mean, I think the weather will never be quite as heartbreaking as just the lack of electricity. Like everything is fine.
100%.
If you could just plug in a heater. But the fact that you just can't so often.
Okay,
right?
I think I'm just gonna ban you from talking about that for the rest of the year. May not mention power or electricity.
That's what drives the night.
You've got an international audience.
Yeah.
I thought this is what this webinar is about. It's about Eskom's.
It's about, that's what we all hear actually, and the rate is going to be joining us in the next half an hour. That's the real reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about what's going on.
What challenges do you have going overseas? Well, going to South Africa, we don't have power.
But I mean, the key is to get those gas heaters. So those like things where those are awesome. Because those use, and also it makes a nice little fire, it creates a cool ambience. I actually love sitting in front of those. Like everything's just dark, and then you have your candles and your gas heater, and you make it cozy. You look for the positives in life.
Problem is you can't put your Netflix and chill though, right?
Yeah, this is
your
true.
Candle and chill.
Yeah, exactly. Candle and chill. Candle and book.
I see we've up to 40 odd participants. Guys, please it's nice if you introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and are you as cold as Cape Town or as warm as London? Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
Let's see the candlelit dinners.
Candlelit dinners, that's quite nice.
Great idea. Or candlelit picnic. You get kind of like the little picnic platters. There's little sausage rolls. They get in the little. We used to chow on those. From Munich.
32 degrees in Munich. Jeez, I don't even know if you can get that hot in Munich.
Definitely a guten Tag there.
I think, yeah,
Sorry.
time for
I'll
a
leave my lame
bed.
jokes behind. I apologize.
No, this is the realm of lame jokes. Do it, bring it.
Cool. So we're 5 minutes in, and I see the numbers seem to have stabilized. So I think we can get going. So to everybody that's joining from everywhere around the world, welcome to another Delta webinar. I'm very excited to be here and be your host. Some really cool guests with me today, and we'll be talking about taking your ventures into new territories. A very cool concept, very cool topic to discuss, and better to have people that are busy going through those exact challenges as we speak. So I'm really looking forward to today. Just quickly, just as a reminder for everyone, after our last webinar, we realized that the audience likes to get involved and ask questions. So we thought this time around, let's actually give the power to the people. And we're going to turn this into a bit of an AMA. So we'll set the scene for you guys. We'll have a few opening questions just to get to understand our guests and our panels and all of that. And then we'll start moving the questions over to the audience. So please, if you've got questions, line them up. We've got a Q&A. You can also raise your hand and I'll attempt. I do apologize. I haven't used a fancy Zoom before, so I'll have to just get used to giving mic privileges to the guests, but we'll get those questions out. And we'll be able to answer them for your best. We've got an hour while we're breaking into that hour. But yeah, really excited to hear the stories that we have ahead of us and the questions that are going to be coming your way. Just to say for everybody, if you're not aware, the Delta, we've started a community. If you haven't joined, we'll send a link. I think if Ringo is somewhere for us, please send us some links into the chat where people can find the new community, the Delta community, where you'll find a lot of the people on these conversations. And yeah, you can engage with us after this webinar.
Come hang out, have a chat.
Yeah, 100%. So in gentleman style, I'll go ladies first. She's already made an appearance. Someone that needs very little introduction, but I will anyways. Alex from Digs Connect. Please, can you introduce yourself and then give us your elevator pitch? What is Digs Connect for the very few people that don't know already?
I thought you were going to introduce me. I was so excited to be like, have these lavish compliments and all my accolades sort of read out, why I very humbly sort of nodded. And I was like, oh, no, shush.
Stop
I
it.
forgot to mention that thing. Yeah. Stop. Yeah. Hello, everyone. It is so lovely to be on this webinar, everyone. I'm still on the names and the locations popping up is so awesome. My name is Alexandria, and I, as mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Digs Connect. So DigsConnect.com is the largest student housing marketplace on the African continent. It works very similar to like an Airbnb. Very similarly, we got a lot of product inspiration from the work they do. Landlords go on, they create listings, students got to find a place to stay. We list at 1.3 million beds worldwide. We're in 400 cities, starting in Cape Town. I built the first version when I was actually a student on campus at UCT. And now we've just expanded globally. So I've been sitting in London for the last 3 months, and we are everywhere.
Nice. Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. 400 cities, that's quite something, but a great story. Yeah,
Stop.
I remember. Yeah, you see, you were waiting for that. Very cool. So next, somebody else that's not coming to us from South Africa or in local shores. His name is Chris. He's from Strove. Thank you very much for joining, Chris. And please, can you introduce yourself to the people that don't know, and what does Strove do?
Cool, thanks, Bobby. And yeah, hello, everyone. So yeah, my name's Chris. I'm the founder and CEO of Strove. Essentially, Strove is an employee wellbeing platform focused on physical and mental health in the workplace. So we built a platform that we offer to companies. You can in turn make it available to employees. And as I mentioned, it's sort of primarily focused on helping employees improve their physical and mental well-being. So on the physical well-being side, we've got integrations with all the activity trackers, and we reward people for being physically active. On the mental well-being side, we've got things like meditations and sleep stories and mental health screening tools. And then we gather all that data and we report it back to the employer to essentially help them drive and inform their people strategy decisions. So what most of our team is in SA. I'm sitting in London. We've got a company set up in the UK as well as in SA, obviously. Clients are both SA and the UK, and we're starting to sort of expand throughout Europe now. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Just very quick, Chris, did you guys have this idea pre-COVID, pre-lockdowns, or did this get inspired during that? I'm just curious.
It was like, we came with the idea for the business about 4 months into COVID. So
okay. Yeah, because I can imagine like everyone was locked in, no territories. It was your 4 walls and your computer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so I had a lot of time to think.
And build.
And play with my Great Danes as well. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for joining. And then last but not least, bringing it a little bit closer to home, we've got Peter from Revio, and he's up in Joburg. Peter, thank you for joining. Welcome. Tell us, what is the Revio story? Who are you guys? What's your elevator pitch?
Cool. Yeah. So thanks. Yeah. I'm Peter. I'm not a founder, so I am not as famous as the other 2 guys and girl. Sorry, the guy and girl. But yeah. So in short, with the short time we've got, so Revio is a subscription billing platform that makes it easier for brands to connect to payment experiences and in turn to turn customers into a lifetime client. So basically, we are a platform that allows businesses and clients to orchestrate payments and collections for themselves.
Brilliant.
As a simple.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and obviously Peter and I, we've had a podcast session together, but your biggest thing is looking after retention, which is quite important when growing. Retaining your customers is very, very important. So yeah, thank you for joining. Looking forward to hearing more about Revio. So yeah, guys, let's start diving in a little bit. I'm excited to hear the war stories. And I think the first thing that I'm curious about is, obviously when you build a product and you're building a business, finding product market fit is not always that easy. And it's the first challenge that you need to kind of have to find. And once you get there, it's a good feeling, but now it's about scaling, and now it's about building, now it's about growing. And I would like to know from you guys, maybe we can start with Alex again, ladies first, just kind of what was the motivation? What was the moment when you said, cool, I think we're ready to expand? Can you just tell us about that story?
That's such an interesting question. I mean, there's so much more to say on this, since I need to try like temper myself. There's two, I've got 2 like conflicting opinions and drivers on this. My first thought is that like, you need to just get something out as fast as you can. So like the sooner you get going, the sooner you scale, the sooner you get things to the market, you get real data, real feedback from customers, and just start tweaking things, like, make it happen. So I feel like you should almost be embarrassed by like the work you put out there a month later, be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. That was like terrible. Because otherwise you can overthink yourself. It's so easy to think yourself into saying no. It's so easy to, I'm not ready. It's not quite right. The timing is never right. It's never perfect. Product market fit is not a destination. It's a journey, which sounds so passe, but really is true. Like, you're not going to suddenly like have this like incredible, like, iPhone 12, like that just pops out of nowhere. It takes like a really long time to get it going, but that can only happen when you're actually doing it. Like, you learn by doing, you get results from actually doing, getting feedback. So on the one hand, I want to be like, just go, 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 go. So on the other hand, like, because I think I'm so like such a devotee of this principle, I've definitely fallen afoul of scaling before, scaling too soon. And I think when it comes down to, I think the deciding factor is like, does scaling help your users or does it hinder your users? And if you're scaling for vanity reasons and not because you want to make your users' lives better, then it's kind of the wrong time to do it. Like, you want to scale something that perhaps, it doesn't have to be perfect yet, but like, does scale help your users? Like, are people like begging for it? Do you go to new markets and you realize that this market absolutely needs what you're selling? And I think in that case, then you want to make sure, and especially, I mean, the other big consideration is practicalities. Can you afford to scale? Scaling is really expensive. Growth is really expensive. And yeah, maybe you just close the funding round and you've got like some dry powder to burn, and that's really exciting. But if you haven't been responsible with your runway and you're going to go chuck out hundreds of, or hundreds of millions, geez, imagine millions of rands into like, launching a new territory and hiring the team and doing the marketing required for that, but that shortened your runway to a point where you actually haven't, factored in when you're going to start making revenue support that all have an upcoming funding round, that's really dangerous. And especially, I mean, if you're reliant on investors, the market shifts, or if you rely on investors to the point where, you haven't achieved product market fit, especially post C, Series A, Series B, then you have a really hard time raising. I think you're going to raise on non-preferable terms and possibly have a down round, which is just not a great look. So there is no simple answer, unfortunately. Like, on the one hand, launch as fast as you can, work as fast as you can. On the other hand, just be very responsible fiscally and understand your runway.
Well, I like that a lot. understanding your runway. And Peter, from Revio's point of view, I know you guys are in the payment space and you guys are kind of in the financial space. And I think if I understand it correctly, you guys are looking into more of an African market. Can you just tell us about that kind of thinking and strategy of bringing your product? What was we're ready to grow. We're ready to take on Africa. Can you just tell us about your kind of journey getting there at the moment?
No, definitely fine. I can 100% attest to what Alex said as well. It's exactly, I mean, even though we are payment space and we're very different to what Alex does or InstaConnect does, the content is very, very similar. Look, it's always easier to expand to the back of initial success in the current market that you're in. You would always think that it is easier to expand because you have a success in one market. It doesn't necessarily mean that you would have the same success in a different market. Even though, yes, we are looking at expanding into the African market, but also to a global sense. We generally say, follow your customer or where your customers generally are. So very similar tapping into what Alex just said is that it's easier from an expansion perspective, it's easier to follow your customers that's already in a specific market. So a Pan-African client, especially in the payment space, where you have a client that is either in South Africa or in a different market around the world that needs to expand themselves to other markets as well. So having that kind of model to join with them. And I also think very touching into what Alex said, expanding too quickly can dilute your focus, especially at a leadership level. And it can stretch your people, to a point where you can't iterate your product quickly enough to meet the customer's needs. So it's quite important to understand that your product will sell in that specific market. I mean, we don't generally look at, building a product first and then going to a market, whereas a lot of startups generally try to do that. Is that I build a product and I know that this specific product will work in all markets. Not necessarily the case. Based on competitors, based on the market share, based on the banking infrastructure in that specific country. So from a growth perspective for us, we just thought we planned it very strategically into the specific markets that we're looking at going into, and also knowing why we're going into those markets, not necessarily for a product, but for the expansion for that specific client requirements that is in that specific regions.
And these are some of the most basic product principles out there: is understand your users, understand your customers. So when you're expanding into new territories, make sure you understand who those people are as well. So Chris, and also just a reminder to the audience, please, if you've got questions, we're turning this into an AMA. Ask them anything you want. Well, anything about moving territories, okay? Expanding into territories. But please get those questions lined up. We're going to give the power over to the public soon. Just to hear more from the panel though, and it's a discussion. So Alex, if you have something you'd like to add on Peter or vice versa, or Chris, please jump in at any point. Moving to Chris. So I just mentioned, and Peter kind of alluded to the whole point of understanding your audience, understanding the people, the users, right? So expanding into a new territory. With Strove, I guess everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people have smartwatches. They've all, they've got their integrations, their syncs in. So you can technically go into many territories. How did you choose which territory would suit the model that you guys are building?
Yes, I mean, obviously, just to what Alex mentioned earlier around like trying to scale into too many markets, potentially diluting yourself. While our platform is kind of not infinitely scalable, but because there aren't like a ton of regulations around the work that we're doing, the product that we offer, we can technically scale into multiple markets at any point in time if we wanted to do so. But obviously, you don't necessarily want to do that because you would be stretching yourself too thin. So we knew that we wanted to scale into at least one additional market outside of SA relatively quickly. We chose the UK for a couple of reasons. One, we've got a bunch of strategic partners here, both from a technology perspective that are essentially helping us with like scalability of our platform. And two, we've got partners on the distribution front. That's obviously like a critical piece when going into a new market, is actually having people on the ground who can help you sell your product. We're in the B2B sales space. So, if if you don't have, the right kind of market access, the right kind of networks that you can leverage, it's actually quite challenging to get your product into, especially the much larger corporates. So for us, we had those distribution channels, or we at least started setting them up already, just through personal networks as well as networks with a couple of companies that we partnered with. So naturally, it just made sense, both, like I said, both from a technology perspective as well as just from a distribution perspective. I'd say a second reason would be well-being budgets in the UK are particularly large relative to, obviously South Africa, as well as many other European countries, at least just based on the research that we've done. We think like part of the reason for that is that hiring in the UK is, or at least part of the reason is particularly challenging to recruit talent ultimately. So companies are trying to do whatever they can to be attractive to really talented people. So if you're a company that's trying to hire like senior software engineers, the one company has like a robust and like comprehensive, let's say, benefits package, and they could show to their employees that they're taking care of them, versus a company that isn't, then I mean, which company are you going to go to work at ultimately? So it's a combination of like technology partners, distribution partners, as well as just essentially the budgets, for lack of a better word, just being sort of larger.
Sorry, I just want to add to that as well what Chris just said. I mean, which is also quite important as part of that. Besides for just the networks or the partners that you got in those specific regions, I mean, with our side from a payment space, it's important to have the right partners in that right specific space. It's easy to onboard a partner to think that they'll grow your revenue for you. At the end of the day, it's one of those partners that it's just there. I wouldn't say leeching on you, but at the end of the day, it's not really worth it. So it's very important for us as well to ensure that your partner can be multiple in that specific region for a specific business opportunity. And I think also part of that is also the team that we employ, or the people that we employ within our business, is also very well connected or well networked. And the diverse experience that you have within your team is vitally important. It's easy to find people that are very similar to you. It doesn't mean that someone that's similar to you is going to actually do the job correctly and expand you in that specific region. So, yeah.
I actually got two things to say to that, because that's triggered my memory. Sorry, just say the first one to talk about is neurodiversity, and the second one to talk about is partnerships. Well, let's start with partnerships first, actually. Like, I think that I don't actually mention partnerships enough, but they actually are so key to our like growth and our success. So one is the partnerships obviously from investors. Like when you pick investors, like money is just like one part of the equation. Like the kind of access to the networks that get you in and the doors that can open. Like as we all know, like it's such a passe thing, but like your network is your net worth. You got a network to get work. All these things are so true. And like if you're just like another person on the street, which we all started out as, like you said, a cold email to someone, a cold message, like, hey, can we meet up? I've got this idea. People are just gonna like spam block, ignore, ain't got time for that. Like it happens to everyone. Like once you get to a certain level, you start getting those emails. I mean, you just like spam block, I ain't got time for this. So like having partnerships from investors that can get you to the right rooms, have the right conversations, that is so key. And also having this idea, I think like old business was around like competition, there's only space for one enough. And one of us, I think it's actually so ridiculous because like the market is actually really big. And by working with key strategic partners that could be seen as competitors, that actually by like, combining your forces, you're able to like target a much bigger segment of the market and do much better work together. I think if you're less greedy and realize I don't need it all for myself, but actually working together with people that are different, you can get a lot more. And the second point of diversity is that I think that we have very superficial ideas around diversity. We have this box ticking exercise where how do you look like X, Y, and Z? Okay, you tick this diverse box, which is like rubbish. I think we look at rather like neural diversity, thinking diversity. Like when it comes to solving a problem, what are the different mindsets that are coming into something that actually solve it? I think one of the reasons why my co-founder, Greg Ramsey Keel, why we're such a good pair is because we are so different in how we think. So like we come to a problem and the way he'll approach and the I'll approach are completely distinct. But obviously there's this mutual respect that I can respect his approach and he can respect my approach, but there's this diversity to it. And I think that when it comes to building teams, and like there's this talk, on like LinkedIn about like diversity, but no one's talking about the real issue, which is like thinking diversity. It's not about ticking boxes, it's about like, how do you think?
Yeah. No, that's Alex dropping some bombs for us here on a Wednesday evening. Yeah, awesome. I love that thinking. So I want to start moving now to the Q&As that are coming in. So thank you very much. The first one is directed at Alex, and in essence, it's coming from I've lost her name. Is it Alexander October, who is saying, I think. I don't think there is a UCT student between 2016 and 2019 who doesn't know and recognize Digs Connect and its incredibly memorable and successful marketing campaigns, dropping money. Everyone knows, heard about that jazz. But how did you come up with the ideas, and how do you know it would work? And maybe I can extend on that. And how do you think it would work in the UK now that you're there?
First of all, that is the best question ever. Well, thank you so much for that. I'm guessing when you ask how do you come up with ideas and how do you know it would work, I'm guessing that refers specifically to the marketing campaigns and not to like the model business in general. So I'll speak to the marketing campaigns. If you do want me to go back and speak about the business model in general, you can just let me know and I can go back to that. But for now, the marketing, I think that I think that we had a bit of an unfair advantage. Like, I was a UC student at the time. My co-founder was a UC student. Our early team, we were all UC students. So we were sitting on campus, like, I'd been there for 3 years already. My friends used these students. We were selling the product to ourselves. So I mean, it's one thing now if I went to go and I had to sell, I don't know, like beard trimming kits to men in like Estonia, I wouldn't even know where to start. But like, I was selling to myself, to my friends. So it was quite easy to understand the language I was using. I mean, we're going to the Digs parties, people talking about, the Zeitgeist campuses. So you know how to catch the attention of like your peers. We're all on the same social media groups. So I think that's a really good inside trick. So if you want to start a company, be like, how do you solve a problem that you're facing? Like, you're your own client. Then you have this crazy insight. You don't have to be, you can become a domain expert in almost anything. But that really helped a lot. And the next thing I think was kind of just like, like not having any scam, like just being absolutely shameless with some of the ideas. I mean, they were just like outrageous, some of the things we were doing in the early days, but like, we just had like so much fun. It's kind of like, what's the opposite of boring? And I mean, we were always these teachers will know that every Thursday we had these huge corporates coming to campus doing these like mind-numbingly dull campaigns about like, oh, like, here's a flyer. Like, I don't want your flyer. Like, here's a free pen, like whatever. So no one like cared about that. So it's kind of like, what would you want? Like, if you were think like the perfect Thursday, which is like corporate down campus, or the perfect kind of like way to interact with the brand, like, what would you find like hilarious and engaging and brilliant and like go tell your friends about, tell your parents about? And so I think just like having that, and also again, it comes back to this incredible relationship that Greg and I have, where we just bounce ideas of each other and like we just unlock this energy. We can be so creative. I mean, we've got a lot more crazy ideas that even we were like, no, that's pushing it too far. I mean, that's a litigation case waiting to happen. If you just do that and really push the bounds a few times. So I think having the right people that can unlock your creativity. I mean, you think with the Beatles, would John or Paul or Ringo have been as brilliant by themselves? I mean, maybe they're all brilliant guys, but together, the four of them made that magic. So I think finding the right people, you can be creative, you can bounce ideas of each other, letting yourself be crazy, be like, what do I want? What's hilarious? And creating that. And also, I think having constraints, like when we did our best work before we raised any funding, and that's a fact. And even though, like, I don't know, now, I mean, we can try to be more creative, but we're almost too comfortable in a sense. It was like that desperation when we had like no money, we had nothing, and you just had to kind of be like, with 3,000 Rand, how do you capture an entire market? And I think that constraints bred love creativity.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was just thinking, if you had to go to London now and try and drop 10 Rand notes, it's like dropping a penny on they'll be like, no, it's cool.
I'll just get thrown in jail for littering, really. Oh, sorry, to answer your question about London, but I think I've spoken enough. So
yeah, cool. Let's move on, because I'm afraid more will come through. So the next question is from Kwame, and I'm assuming this is for Peter, because it's with a fragmented market in Africa. What indicators do the founders look at when deciding which market to launch in next? So talking about economic indicators of the country or market size, and I suppose we can say how hairy it must be at the moment, because the market is just so all over the place and not looking so great. So Peter, thoughts on what economic indicators you're looking at?
Well, besides for the economic indicators, I mean, first and foremost, to understand when you're going to an African market, knowing that it's fragmented, especially from a payment space where we are, the space we're playing in. I mean, there are physically 3 dimensions we assess: the market opportunity, the feasibility, and then the ease of doing business in that region. And we plan around those 3 different things. There's different data points that we run for operations in that specific market to ensure that the market is suitable for us. I mean, it doesn't mean because a market in a specific country has got so many people that it's going to work in that country, because it might not be the correct customer, even though there's so many customers or possible opportunity customers in that country. It's the specific requirement for a specific solution. So we know that there's different markets and different approaches to each specific market, especially when it gets to regulations. Obviously, it becomes very difficult and tricky to try and to play through those. But at least, again, this is where those strategic partnerships Alex also spoke about are so vitally important, because you're playing off what they've already done. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel into a specific market, rather play with the knowledge of the partners that you already have in that specific region. And then from an economic perspective, obviously for us, the indicators we generally look at is the banked population, obviously, as well, especially from a payments perspective. I mean, we need to understand from if a country's got enough banking solutions or banking population in that country, and then also obviously what kind of payment methods they use in those specific countries. I mean, there's countries, funny thing, one of our clients the other day, when we had a conversation with them in Morocco, they were paying their gym contracts with checks. Still, I mean, if you ever, I don't know, we live in I don't know what we're, a third world country now, or second, or whatever we are, but I mean, I haven't used a check for probably the last 10, 15 years. They still pay their gym contracts with checks. So those are the kind of countries that we look at to try and enhance their payment methods to make it easier and quicker for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. I think if we think about Africa in particular, I mean, there's countries like Kenya, Nigeria that are like advancing at extremely fast rates, which makes it quite attractive, especially with the growing infrastructure. And I hear the dev teams in Nigeria, for example, are also like seriously speeding up and advancing a lot quicker. So that makes it very attractive, I think. So I just saw a thing come through in the chat, and I'm going to send this to Chris. Stroeve, what is your approach to scaling if you know that a big competitor like Discovery can also tap into the market easily with the current connections and client base globally? Great question, Stefan.
And they have, just saying, putting that as well. So Discovery have gone into African markets at the moment with their Discovery product or their Vitality product. If you've read the news.
What about the UK, Chris?
Yeah, so I think if they really wanted to start pushing distribution and gain market share in the UK, even though they do have like a fairly big presence, I don't think they've pumped, or at least based on our research, and they don't seem to have pumped a lot of resources into acquiring a ton of customers here, particularly on the corporate wellbeing side. Obviously, they've got their insurance products. So most of Vitality users sit with Discovery policy holders. We play in a slightly different space. So we are more a B2B employee wellbeing platform as opposed to a B2B2C, like tag on to an insurance product, hypothetically. So we don't necessarily see them, while they do some stuff that is similar to us, we don't really see them as a competitor. Like personally, I use Vitality. I'm not like particularly keen on their products. So not to name and shame, but like...
Can't tell if there's Discovery people on the call, damn it.
Yeah, no, I need to be careful.
Adrian Gore's going to come for you.
No, you joke. So we had, I'm going to just be fully transparent, tell you a little story. So about 3 or 4 months ago, we had someone from one of the heads of business development of Vitality submits a form on our website requesting a meeting with us, but he used a fake company name and his personal email address. So I saw this come through and I was like, it's a really weird company name. So we tried to do a little LinkedIn search, and obviously like the company was non-existent. So we checked Oak's name on LinkedIn. Obviously, it came up that he's part of BizDev, but Vitality is like fairly high up as well. So I said to our head of sales and BizDev, I was like, listen, let's jump on the call with him and just like see what happens. So 2 days later, we got on the call, just play it. So we got on the call, we just like pretending like we didn't know anything. And for like 15 minutes, he was just fishing for product ideas. He was like, what is your guys' approach like mental health? Like what integrations have you built? Like where are you taking the product? We didn't really say much. We were giving like these very like abstract answers. And then at the end of his kind of questioning rant or whatever, we eventually said to him, we were like, listen, we know where you're from. We know what
Did
you're
you call
trying
him
to
out
do.
on the call, literally?
Yeah. We're
Amazing.
like, we know where you're from, and like we kind of know what you're trying to do. And he was like, okay, I'm sorry, like, probably shouldn't have done that. And then we cut the call, and we haven't heard from him since.
That is so
Wow.
dodgy. I mean, we've had something also where like we had a big corporate like say they want to invest in us. And so we're like, okay, this is really exciting. And then, I spoke so favorably about partnerships. I'm like, yeah, we love partnering. Like we're so open to it. Like I think it was very trusting. And so we went into this, our first pitch meeting, and it was ultimately a DD, and we were kind of like, and I'm very transparent. I mean, I probably share too much, to be honest, for anyone who follows my Twitter.
you have to be super careful with that. So I know two people who like run fairly big tech companies who pitched. The one was a pitch for a product that they wanted to sell into this really big corporate, and the other was a potential acquisition. And obviously in those discussions, you're divulging like the sensitive IP.
Of course, you have to be completely transparent.
And both of them turned around and released competitive products within the next year or two.
So the company that we was going to buy us, they made an offer, and we're like, oh, this is a really exciting deal. And then it came out, but then it just didn't actually work out. And then it kind of came out that now they're actually competing with us for a contract, and it's super, super dodgy. But
you have to be
interestingly, there was actually someone, I can't remember who, someone tweeted this morning. I think it was Keith Marcel from Night Capital.
Yes, this morning.
That it's actually
what was
the
tweet?
He was saying that who you are, companies that do a DD on startups who steal their IP, which is good. We should actually start getting it out there, because it's like, I mean, look, it's business. You could say on the other hand, like it's business. It's always fair in love and war, whatever. But it's also really unethical. And I think that your reputation, especially in a market like South Africa, which is quite small, if people know it and you have a reputation for being like a bit slimy, like no one's going to work with you. They'll be like, this guy,
Yeah. So what about that compared to, like, in your case, Alex, an Airbnb taking on students now, hypothetically, knock on wood?
Well, I mean, everyone does ask us this when we pitch. I don't think there's a problem there, because they focus on the holiday market. So they work on like, they expand like things like flights and experiences and like, I don't know, visas hopefully, but like the travel experience. So, I mean, there's always going to be competitors. Like it's a fair market. Like anyone competes. Someone can start tomorrow and compete with us. It's more the fact that someone gives you under false pretenses. They're like, oh, we want to invest. Let's do a DD. And then they or like they jump to a call with, with Chris and say, oh, we want to, use you as a client. And then, that I think is dodgy. The false pretenses. Like a fair competition is fine. Like we're all in this, to compete. But
So maybe just to go back to Stefan's question. So I think part of the vast majority of at least Vitality's revenues are generated on the more insurance side of things, not necessarily on the corporate well-being side of things. So for them to go and pump a whole bunch of resources into expanding more and more into the corporate well-being space, they probably have a hard time getting buy-in from the board, because it's not their most profitable business segment. So and at the same time, like, just because there's an existing competitor doesn't mean that you can build, or you can't build, a far better product and take market share.
I almost want to ask, but I think we're running out of time, and there's still questions to go. But just like, how much competition analysis do you do in these markets, or have you done? And are you aware of competition in your fields? We're talking Discovery, we're talking Airbnb, but they obviously, we've now stated they're not direct competition. Have you guys identified competition, and are you doing anything about it?
Look, from our side, sorry for jumping the gun there, but I think from our side, we try to not focus on the competition because there'll always be competition. It's counterproductive to try and focus on what the other guys are doing instead, especially for a startup. To understand how they're doing it, probably yes, but not so much from where they are in the market and how much market share they've got in order to lose or in order to gain. It's more about focusing on, for us, it's more focusing on what the client's requirements are. I mean, if we know we can do better for the client and for your customer, they would automatically come to us than going to the competitor. We get asked a lot of the times, especially in the payment space, so what makes us different to a gateway, to like your card gateways or something like that? And what are the chances that a gateway would most likely build something that you guys have built or that we've built? And we say, you know what, they most likely could, and they most likely would in the long run. We don't know. But you know what, for the time being now, we're focusing on ourselves and making sure that we do the best we can in a specific region or specific market to assist customers that don't have the technology or the capability to be a banked customer or be an online customer. So yes, we do have the customer, the competition, but it's good. I think, like Alex said, you need competition to push yourself, definitely. But if you keep on focusing on your competition, you're not going to go anywhere, because then you're going to end up building or doing what they've got.
100%.
And what's the point of that? You're trying to be different. You're trying to be better.
Yeah. No, I was also sorry, we're so much to say on this because it's such an interesting topic. So I've kind of got two conflicting viewpoints. On the one hand, Paul Graham has this thing where he says every second spent focusing on the competition is a second wasted. And I agree. Like, you know, you should do what you got to do, but sometimes a competitor will pop up saying it's so brilliant, you're stupid to ignore them, you know. On the other hand, it feels like if a competitor does pop up and they kind of starting to ruffle the waters, it's easier to like crush them early on than to wait until they're really big. So you kind of got to make a call sometimes and be like, someone pops up and they're big enough to get into your field of vision. Like, you seem like is it worth me diverting some of my resources towards like just crushing them while they're small? That sounds so hectic. I should say the word crushing. Into like
a bit rough.
Into completely annihilating them.
Alex just called herself Goliath, by the way.
Always it better to kind of like focus on what you're doing, and I think it depends on your resources, the competitor, the size of the markets, and any sort of issues there. Often you'll find that most startups die from self-inflicted wounds. It's not competitors are competing them; they're just making the wrong calls. The founders are screwing up along the way. Yeah, but I think it's like there's an art to it. You got to kind of assess it at the time.
And I think I 100% agree with you there, Alex. It's not like we won't look at the competition out there, because it is important to know who you're competing against, but not putting too much focus on it if it's not worth your while at that point in time. Yeah,
agreed. All right, let's move. An interesting one here. I really like this. So Sean Smith has asked us, when you scaled and were looking at angels or VCs to partner with, how did you guys find that in SA or London? And how rapidly did that happen? Were you lucky or patient? And that's Sean from Vidder.tech. Any takers? Chris, we haven't heard from you. Do you want to,
cool.
Did you look for funding? How did that go? Was it local based, international based?
So we raised a seed round of capital about 14 months ago from a VC fund called Launch Africa, as well as like a few sort of high net worth individuals. How we found them, it was a lot of like cold outreach, LinkedIn DMs, just kind of like, you know, just hustling to get through to people.
So no patience to answer the one side of the question.
What I would say is like LinkedIn, like it is an incredible tool from a networking perspective. You know, people have differing views about, you know, the validity of the content and stuff like that on the platform, but like, I think just purely from a networking perspective, it is an incredible tool. So I got connected with one of our angel investors on LinkedIn. He then connected me with 3 others. And then somehow our investor deck, I'm not actually quite sure how, but it got passed from one of our angel investors to someone that he knew in Egypt. Then that got passed from the guy that he knew in Egypt to somewhere else in Northern Africa. And then it got passed on to the partner at Launch Africa. So it was like, it's kind of like the circular thing
they
where
all know each other. All the VCs know each other. So like once you're in the circle, the pitch decks get passed around. Like
once you're in, it's like so much easier to find that next person. But it's just that like initial entry point. And I would say like just message someone. What I would also recommend though, on some level, if you can, like ideally don't message people for the first time and ask them for capital or cash or whatever, because that's not always a good look. See if you can like on some level provide value to them. Like maybe if you saw like an interesting article and you know that they work in like, I don't know, the edtech space, you came across this really interesting article about market trends in edtech. This is a hypothetical example. And you send them this article, say like, I've been following you on LinkedIn for the past little while. Like I thought you might find this quite interesting. You know, I'm around in Cape Town, you know, it'd be interesting to just like link up for a coffee, meet up with them 2 weeks later, have a coffee, keep that relationship sort of going. And then, you know, a month or two down the line, you'd be in a much better position. You know, and they would feel a lot more comfortable having a conversation with you about, you know, potentially investing in your company. But I would say like, just definitely just reach out to people. A lot more people will respond. Yeah, you have to be shameless, 100%.
Like, hey, and then like, who you? Hey, I'm your new best friend. That's who I am.
People won't respond, and you just got to kind of just be like, okay, well, you know, they're busy. You can't get back to every message. I struggle to get back to all my LinkedIn messages. I do make a conscious effort to try to, but sometimes it is challenging. So like, you know, if you send out 100 messages, maybe 5 will respond. And maybe one relationship will come out of that, but that one relationship could lead to, you know,
anything.
A lot of really positive things.
I think it's important to build connections, though. So I think it's important also the connections that you currently have. You don't necessarily first have to go to someone that you know that's going to invest or could possibly invest. It's also having the conversations with your inner circle and people that you know, to know who are people. I mean, a warm lead is always better than a cold lead, right?
Yeah.
Again, yes, to be shameless is important to be able to borrow yourself through, fair. But to have a warm lead, to have a conversation with someone, it could be easier for a startup, especially right in the beginning.
No, I do.
Than trying cold.
I do agree with you, but I think. Oh, sorry, Alex.
I keep talking.
You want to go for it?
Sorry. I was going to say, so the advice, I mean, so like I always give to any founders that ask for insight is to kind of like flip it around. So I mean, obviously, the ideal thing is like it's all with the power dynamics in a way. It's kind of like if you want something, like then you kind of on the back foot. But if you want something from you, then you kind of have a bit more of an edge. And like obviously, like it's like the reason why I think raising capital from US investors is so nice, because it's just like there's so many investors that want to deploy money, they just want to get it out there. So it's like a complete different dynamic. You'll see, like when you raise in South Africa, when you raise in Europe, and then when you raise in the US, it is two complete different experiences. And so like my main advice I always say to founders is like make yourself investable. Like then it's an easy sell. It's like, you know, if you got to sell water to like, you know, a man dying of thirst, like you got to sell the water, you know, but like if you're selling ice in Eskimo, so like make yourself investable. It's the same thing like getting a co-founder, make yourself worthy of being someone else's co-founder. Like, so I think the main thing is like, don't raise until you absolutely have to. And then when you absolutely have to, the point where like, you would want to invest in that. So if you would actually put your money and you know, like your hard-earned cash, and you know how many hours of work it took to raise that capital, if you would take your money and put into this business, honestly, put it into the business because you think it's the right thing, like then I think you're ready. You know, like, is that an investable business? That's a hard question to ask yourself. Like, are you investable? And like, often you're actually like in the early stage, you're not. You know, you're selling dreams, and like, cool, maybe that works in like Sand Hill Road or in California, but like if you're selling South Africa, you got to show some traction. You got to have some sexy, talk to yourself, and it makes yourself investable. Get yourself out there, put yourself on the map. Everyone's got like, you know, the best idea ever. What have you done? Like, what have you done? What have you built? Which, you know, actually like build something amazing, but like have something out there. What clients have you spoken to? What customer research have you done? What branding have you done? You know, have you started doing anything outrageous on social media? You don't have to say, oh, well, you know, I need money to grow. No, you don't. Like social media is free. You know, being creative is free. You know, hack things together. You can like do a website online for basically nothing, you know, like do an online course, like you can figure it out. And also anyways, like that kind of, I mean, the takeaway is it's not a question of resources, it's a question of resourcefulness. And that's what makes a founder that kind of, that stays the course and gets to anything, is that like when market changes, when times get tough, are you gonna be like, oh, well, you know, the market's tough, that's why, you'd be like, actually, I'm gonna figure it out. And I think if you can figure it out and show something to investors at an early stage, that makes you stand out. You think investors are getting like 100 like pitch decks in a week on the inbox? Like, delete. What makes you stand out?
Yeah. So Sean, did you get what you were looking for there? That was quite a nice. I thoroughly enjoyed that little segment there. So thank you for that question. And I think just looking at his question again, it says, "Were you lucky?" And I think the answer was no. You guys went and you hustled and you made it happen. You went to go look for it and you were smart about it. And Alex, you brought up some great points there. Cool. So we've got Abdul next, and it's directed at Alex, and it says, "Nice to have you on the panel. Incredible work at Digs Connect in South Africa. If you were to start with Digs Connect, if you had to start over with Digs Connect, what would you do differently?"
So on the one hand, I want to say that like all the lessons I've learned that are the most true, the most helpful, I learned because I screwed up royally, and you only learn when you suffer. Like people can tell you your whole life, oh, do this, do that. And you're like, yeah, whatever. And then you do like the mistake they told you to avoid. It really sucks. And then you're like, okay, now I get it. And then it happens all the time. I mean, like the best founders have told me things and I ignored it and then learned the hard way. Then I tell new founders the same thing and they ignore it. I'm like, you'll see. And then they suffer the results, and it goes on like that. You just have to learn as a founder. On one hand, I'll say like make the mistakes you're gonna make. It's how you just like try survive your own stupidity. In a sense, it's like toddlers have to survive like killing themselves from all the stupid things they do. If they do it, they reach adulthood. It's amazing. But I think if I did have to pick one thing, I'd say I wish I had raised less funding. Like it's really hard as a fund. If you start off with nothing and then you do something exciting and the investors get really excited and like they offer you a lot of cash and you think, oh wow, this is amazing. It's like some validation that like I'm brilliant. But like equity is your most expensive asset. It is everything. And like when you start, like there's a reason why people giving you a lot of money, because they want to love your equity, and that's obviously amazing, and it validates that you're not insane, and it validates what you're doing has like traction and is meaning, and other smart people are backing that, and that's really good indicators. But try to be disciplined. Take half of what you need, take a quarter of what you need. You don't need as much as you think you do. Like be lean, be fiscally responsible, hit profitability as soon as you can, like delay everything else. So I think I would have actually been a bit stricter and not grown as fast as I had. We grew way too fast. Even now, I feel like we're growing too fast, and it's like scary. So I would actually, it's maybe not the advice they're giving in California, where they're just like, grow aggressive. I'll take grow slow, be lean, raise less funding than you need. And as soon as you can, like be reliant on your own profitability. Because then when if you do need to raise whatever, you're doing it much more on your terms. So it's not exciting because everyone wants to be, have like a huge Facebook type company overnight. But like, I think realistically, to rather be like, okay, this is going to be a 3 to 4 to 5 year journey, and I'm going to raise for that. I'm going to plan for that and budget for that.
That's quite interesting, and I think about that often. I think everyone wants to like strive to be the next Steve Jobs or a Bezos and have the biggest company. You don't have to strive for that, right? You can start small. It sounds weird, like don't dream as big, but maybe that's
no, but you can. That's you can, but I mean, like Bezos been doing this for like 30, 40, 50 years. Like Airbnb, everyone's like, oh, Airbnb, startup, overnight success, 12 years. Spotify, it was like, oh yeah, Spotify is startup, 11, 12 years that you're going for. So like, rather just be like, where do you want to be? And like, if you want to build something truly huge, I mean, Apple, everyone's like, oh, it's like the peak of innovation. They started in the 70s, bro. Like, peak of innovation just takes time. So I say get started, like set the right foundation. It's really hard to go back and fix mistakes as you made them. So like, I'll say just you can dream big, but just give yourself realistic timescales, especially when a company that does last that long.
Anything else?
I think it's about the legacy that you want to leave as well. I mean, which is just quite important for every founder that you start you have a startup and then you're building it for what reason you are trying to build it for. I think it's important for anybody wanting to start a business is to understand, why am I doing this? Is to obviously solve a problem that you really find that exists, like what Alex did with their business. And then I think the next part on that is you're trying to leave a legacy. The same thing as Apple has done, or Steve Bezos has done, all those kind of guys. It's an innovative business that keeps on growing, that started in the 70s, like you said. So if you're trying to build a business now to be very successful in 2 years or a year's time, what next from there? You always got to think about it. And this is why it's so important to scale to your own ability. scale. I mean, for us in our spaces, it's scale to the technology that is available at that time. Hence the reason someone like Apple, for argument's sake, it took them from the 70s because the technology wasn't there in the 70s. They evolved with technology as it went along. So you need to learn as well to evolve your product and your business and your skill set as you go along to leave a legacy at the end of the day.
Interesting fact, I found out that the first Apple iPhone didn't have 3G.
Didn't you know that?
No, I didn't. I only found this out. Okay, cut me some slack.
I take it you're a Samsung guy. Just saying.
Well, I recently moved over. The jury is still out. Just saying. To finish off, we got a couple. Last one here we got from Ruan van Sale that's asking the panel, how much time do you spend in your current region to that of focusing on a new market? So I guess how much time and focus are you putting on the current markets that you're on before you start looking into new ones? Is this scary enough what you're doing? Panel, anyone?
Cool. Happy to jump
Chris,
in.
go for it.
Cool. So I think before investing a ton of time and energy and resources into, sort of expanding into, sorry guys, so he's trying to talk to me. You obviously want to make sure that you've got established some kind of foothold in the current markets that you're operating in. Otherwise, you're just going to ultimately be stretching yourself too thin. So once you've established some kind of foothold and you've got, some elements of like product market fit, market validation, then it kind of warrants potentially exploring other markets. But again, it's like you got to weigh up the sort of cost, do a bit of a cost benefit analysis. Yeah.
Chris, do you guys have like a metric that you're looking at that is kind of pointing you in the direction that you've kind of made it in this market?
I think when you get, like we've got like a few, relatively big corporates on board that are actually like willing to pay us a decent amount of money for our product. For us, that was enough validation to start exploring another market. Up until that point, like I said, we didn't really have enough of a foothold on the market. But once we got a couple of big corporate clients on board, and then they started asking us about whether we could onboard employees in other countries, that's when we kind of knew that it was at least time to potentially start exploring some kind of expansion opportunity.
Yeah,
I 100% agree with you as well on that. I just want to add to that as well. I think I had mentioned earlier that it is easier for yourself to expand into a new market on the back of your own success in one specific market. So if you think you're very successful in South Africa, so therefore you must be successful in a different market. It's not always the case like that. It doesn't always work like that. And like I mentioned also as well, it can very quickly dilute your focus of what you're trying to achieve going forward. Exactly what Chris mentioned as well now is that you need to try to learn what you're trying to solve in a different market before you can actually go there. It doesn't mean, because like I said, especially for regulations, the product, the customer, there's so many points and facets that you need to think about that is successful in one market if it's going to work in another market. It doesn't matter what product or brand you're trying to sell, because you might not have the same kind of easy communicating customer in a specific region that what you have in your current market. So it's important to understand that. I don't believe there's a specific time frame that you sit in one market before you move to a next. It's the right time, and investing the strategy that you've got, and also the looking in a specific market of how you can grow in that market to make it successful if you want to be going in that market. And then the other important part is the way that we do it. Follow your customer. I mean, if your customer is doing the same thing in South Africa and you're moving and they are already in a different market and it's working in that market for them, then move with them. It's easier to have a multinational client in working in multiple different regions than trying to find new clients in a specific region where you've never been in before.
Awesome. And I did warn the panelists leading up to tonight that time was going to fly. It has flown. It is past already. And I just want to thank everyone for joining, and thanking the panelists for joining us and sharing their amazing insights. As a reminder, the Delta, we've started a community, and you'll be able to interact with the very people on this panel. You can continue this amazing conversation. It's been great, and thank you very much. So I have just put the link to, there we go, Ringo and I on it. Visit the delta.community and you can join in. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone to taking time out of the evening to join us. But before we finish,
yeah, thank you.
Yes, but to finish, ladies first again. Alex, what is your final takeaway? One sentence each from the panel before we say goodbye.
That is very unfair, putting you on the spot like that. And give me
Come on, you've got
absolutely no
bombs, drop
warning.
them.
Okay, my bomb is that idea you have right now to the panel. You've got an idea in your head. You're thinking about something. You've also, now this is your sign you're waiting for. Start that startup. This is the sign you'll be waiting for. You can do it. Absolutely. That's my finishing thoughts.
Amazing. Peter?
It's not that difficult to have a startup. Just have the idea, and like Alex, push it. And if you need the advice, speak to Alex. I'm just teasing. When you need the advice
per second, right?
Well, if you guys heard the conversation we had prior to the actual thing, this
no, we're gonna have to stop beeping things, Peter. Stop.
Yes. First and foremost, you probably will never get hold of Alex. So, but no, I'm just teasing. And I think my bomb is if you've got the idea, go with it. There's no such thing as a wrong idea. Go with it.
And Chris, to finish us off, what's your bomb about new territories?
About new territories?
Yeah, let's keep it in theme.
Why is this question different?
Yeah.
I just realized we're talking about starting, and it was like we talking about territories here. So sorry, Chris, putting you in the spot here.
I'll give two. So more general one. I think there's a lot of, like fear in the market at the moment. People are like very apprehensive about the startup space. Like obviously the global economy is like not in a particularly good state. So I think for people that are interested in starting a company, like some of the best companies were started during downturn. So don't let that be a deterrent.
Good point.
So that would be one thing. I think the second thing is in terms of scaling into new markets, just don't do it until you like intuitively feel and believe that you're ready, essentially, and you'll know when that is. So
yeah, I think when you say that, I think about your guys' points about stretching yourself too thin. So but great bombs, guys, lots of bombs. Thank you very much for all them bombs, and thank you very much again to everyone joining us. Look out for the next one. We'll be definitely doing this again, so we'll see you then.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, Chris, and Peter.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful one. Chat soon again.
Bye, guys.
Cheers. Bye.